Welcome back to Have You Heard? And have you heard what's going on with the Palisades Fire? Well, this is breaking news. We're going to let you hear it right now. Let's get into the content.
We are learning that a jury has now declared a mistrial in the arson case against Jonathan Rinderknecht. You'll remember that's the man accused of starting the deadly Palisades Fire.
Okay, well, as we can see, the judge has declared a mistrial in the Palisades Fire trial. So it's been a mistrial. The jury couldn't come up with the proper decision all at once. I mean, they couldn't come all together and make a guilty or not guilty verdict. So it led to a mistrial.
Jurors coming back with guilty, the 10 others saying that he wasn't. Let's get right to Brian Buckmeyer. All right, Brian, your thoughts?
This is interesting, and I think interesting, especially for the defense and what happens moving forward. Oftentimes, here, what you just said, we don't hear about. We hear mistrial. We hear that there's a mixed bag in terms of guilt or innocence or unable to come to a conclusion. But hearing that 10 of the jurors said not guilty, I think would give an air of confidence to the defense to say, if you choose to retry this.
So 10 of the jurors said he was not guilty, and I guess the other two jurors was on the fence or couldn't come up, or figured he was guilty. So, well, it's led to a mistrial. Let's get back into the content.
Case, why does it make sense? Why move forward? Because for any case, a prosecutor must show that they believe they can get a guilty verdict. With an outcome like this, I think it's a very difficult conversation for the prosecution to move forward. So interesting to see what happens next.
All right, so the government apparently is saying it will retry this case.
Okay. So there's going to be a retrial. So I guess they're going to retry the case and give the prosecution, time to come up with more evidence, more facts, more things, and see what happens at the end. See what the jurors do again with the trial once it's retried. So we'll see. Let's get back to the content.
We're just learning that now. So let's look at the possible scenarios here, because I guess let's go back to the evidence. And what do you think happened here that put doubt in the mind of 10 jurors?
I think for this type of case, and I don't mean like a fire case, I don't mean a media case, I just mean a case that involves a type of science that is not basic or common knowledge to people, even to experts. I've done arson cases, I've reviewed arson cases, but I've never heard of an arson case where a person is accused of starting a fire on one day, and then that fire going underground and continuing to cause a much larger, a record-breaking fire 7 days later. That's not a...
Well, you see, they said, he said that, fire, that the case maybe took a hit because, the circumstances are not, the circumstances of the case are not well known to many people, like how to deal with fires and what to do with fires, because they say this fire was set and it smoldered the Lackman fire was set and it smoldered underground for a week and then reignited a week later to end up developing into the Palisades Fire. So, there's a lot of confusion. People are confused. People don't know whether to say or how to say or how to, detect or predict how things went when it comes to fire if you're not, because sometimes it confuses fire experts also. So, let's get back into the content. Let me know what you think in the comments, people.
Thing that I think attaches naturally to someone's concept of how fires work. And I think the ability to poke holes in the science of that is what probably led to this argument. Of course, there's also issues like what they said was the incendiary device that started the fire. I believe they said it was fireworks. I think the defense made a very strong argument of saying that no fireworks were recovered either on Rinderknecht's person or when they went to go and arrest him at his home, wherever it may be.
Okay, so they said that it may have been fireworks, but there were no fireworks recovered on the scene. There were no fireworks at the home of the defendant when they when they arrested him, and there was no fireworks recovered on his person when they arrested him. So that kind of throws the firework. That kind of throws the firework case. I mean, that kind of throws the fireworks out of it. So we'll see what's going on. Let's get back to the content, people.
The fact that this is New Year's Day or leading into New Year's Day, and many people were reported setting off fireworks, I think those play a large part into this. But I definitely think the science of understanding a fire going underground and then coming back up might lead some people to a sense of disbelief.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at exactly what.
Oh yeah, and the fireworks were going off on New Year's Day. A lot of people pop fireworks on New Year's, so anyone, if it was fireworks, then it could have been anyone's firework that started the fire. So you can't just blame one person unless you saw him start the fire, but it could have been anyone's fireworks. If they're blaming it on fireworks, everyone lights fireworks on New Year's. If they're not shooting their guns in the air, they're lighting fireworks. So yeah, it could have been anyone's firework if there were fireworks going off in the area. Let's get back to the content.
The assistant U.S. attorney said during closing arguments that the firefighters initially thought they had extinguished the New Year's Eve Lockman fire, but instead it smoldered underground for 6 days in the.
Okay, so the firemen thought they extinguished the Lockman fire. They thought they extinguished it. These are professional firefighters. How do you think you extinguish something? You have to make sure, if you have to cut a line or anything in the dirt, to make sure that the fire is out and not still prevalent in the area. So, you have to make sure, not you thought. That's a terrible excuse. We thought we put it out. Well, you thought wrong, because obviously you didn't put it out, and it reignited and burned up Pacific Palisades and everything around it.
System of brushes and trees before bursting into view as the deadly Palisades Fire that, of course, we covered on January 7th, 2025. And then remember the strong Santa Ana winds also at that time. We'll never forget how the blaze just spread for acres and acres. Alex Stone covered it as well. Brian, he joins us now by phone.
Well, they say the Santa Ana winds, which we all know, help spread the fire around throughout the area, because the winds blow. Fire season, this happened in fire season, and the Santa Ana winds, it helped blow the embers around to spread to other places, other dry vegetation that ignited and ultimately caused the fire that burnt up everything.
The judge now declares a mistrial in the arson trial of the Palisades Fire suspect. Alex, let's just kind of go back and recap how we got here, and what do you make of the mistrial?
Well, so much of this, Kira, was circumstantial, and I mean, Brian can attest to that. So many cases are circumstantial where they do get convictions out of it, but his defense team was really saying, hey, look, there is no evidence that his client actually did this, and then that fire created, even though the science is there, led into from the Lockman fire to the Palisades fire.
Okay, so they're saying all the evidence in the case was circumstantial. They didn't have no solid evidence, no real evidence. So everything, he's been locked up on circumstantial evidence for the last 10 months. And, there was no definitive evidence of he started the fire or anything. But he's been locked up for 10 months for it. Now he's facing trial for it. But, yeah, let's get back to the content.
Connection should then go back to his client, and that he's responsible for what ultimately happened. And the argument was that on New Year's Eve that he was distraught, he was angry, he was driving an Uber, went up, started that fire, and then the LA Fire Department came and put it out. But his defense team said...
Well, they said that he was angry, he was driving an Uber, he was distraught, and he went up there and set the fire. I don't know. Like I said, it's a lot of circumstantial evidence, but they keep saying that he was angry and he waged war on billionaires.
That he was being used as a scapegoat for the LA Fire Department's mistakes. We don't know if the jurors, at least those who said not guilty, if they agreed with that, but he said that he was a scapegoat in all of this and that he was not guilty of creating the Palisades Fire.
Yeah, he had initially told investigators that he was alone in the area around midnight on December 31st back in 2024 and denied setting the fire. But then didn't he eventually say that he may have smoked a cigarette or two while on the darkened trail? Because that
Well, now they're saying he smoked a cigarette or two. They saying he said he smoked a cigarette or two. First, they said he had the means to start the fire from the lighter. And it's just, it's a whole lot of confusion. Everybody's confused in this case, I see. And as you can see, the jury, they were confused in this case as well. This is what led to a mistrial. It's a lot of confusion in the case. It's a lot of facts that we don't have. It's a lot of things that we don't really understand. So, in the public court opinion, he's guilty. But as the facts and evidence shows, he's not guilty. Let's get back into the content.
when questions started to arise after he was arrested.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He said that he didn't remember what brand he had smoked or how he had lit the cigarettes, but that there was this image that was put together of him that he was so distraught over a number of things going on wrong in his life that he went up and started the Lockman fire, and that it was out of this anger about the wealthy who live in Pacific Palisades and anger against them. But then there was this other side saying, no, that, this may have been a guy who was kind of down on his luck and he had a cigarette and
It's like everybody is trying to justify the reasons he did it for him. It's like, wow, the court of public opinion, this sways the way jurors think in cases once you put this man's face on TV and is only calling him a Uber driver, the Uber driver. It takes, it takes away from what it makes you feel empathy for him, and it makes you decide on something else, and then once you see all the things that goes on with the law enforcement and with the police and the corruption and all this stuff, it makes you just question whether he did it or whether they are making him a scapegoat, because the firefighters went up there and thought that they put the flames out but didn't extinguish the flames properly and left it there, and it came back a week later and burned up everything. It burned up everything, and they were there to put out a fire, but they thought they put it out. Obviously, they didn't do the proper checks afterwards. So, they didn't know if it was extinguished, or they didn't realize it was still burning underground. So, yeah, I don't know. Tell me what you think about it in the comments, people.
a small wildfire and that shouldn't then be linked to everything that went on a week later. And I mean, there are a lot of questions, Kira, about the LA Fire Department's response, but you look at it and say they respond to how many wildfires every day where they go and they put them out and they leave and they move on to the next call. This was the one that 7 days later, the Santa Ana winds kicked it back up. Is that the fault of the fire department? Is it the fault of the suspect? Is it nobody's fault and it was just a mistake, or something was overlooked, or science that wasn't totally under?
Well, if it was overlooked and it was a mistake, then it's the firefighters' fault, because they were called to extinguish the blaze, and obviously they didn't extinguish it properly. They didn't check. They overlooked something, maybe a patch, that's something that was there still burning. They overlooked it, and it festered for a week and reignited, and ultimately burnt up everything. So I think, if you ask me, it's the firefighters' fault for not being precise with the checking, knowing that we have wildfires, knowing that the Santa Ana winds in this time, and maybe unknowing, maybe they knew by seeing the dry vegetation all around where the fire was taking place that they were there to extinguish. So I don't know. Tell me what you think about it in the comments, people. Do you think it was the fire department's fault for the Pacific Palisades fire, for their negligence?
At the time of this rekindling, who is really at fault? And the jurors today saying that at least most of them were saying that it wasn't his. But now we see if they do.
Okay, so we're going to end this one here, people. Thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.